On this Saturday night, deadly Ontario storm. The trail of destruction left behind by surprise extreme weather in central Canada. Abortion ban.
The people of Oklahoma are going to suffer, and the blood will be on our hands.
Lawmakers in Oklahoma pass America's most restrictive abortion bill. What this means for women's rights across the country. Travel chaos.
People are pissed off.
Frustrations boiling over as thousands of Canadians scramble to jet away.
They should hire more people or figure it out.
And food spending woes.
Food inflation is probably the biggest issue affecting households right now.
With prices soaring, Canadians turn to meal kits. But do they actually save you money?
Global National. Reporting tonight, Tracy Tong.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news out of the Greater Toronto area, where a woman in her 70s has died after being struck by a falling tree during a wild thunderstorm this afternoon.
I believe she was alone when she was walking during the storm, and who's to know that this is something that's going to happen? This is just an absolute tragic,
About an hour away.
Accident that's happened.
About an hour away south of Kitchener, Ontario Provincial Police say a second person also died in the storm after a tree fell on a camping trailer. Wind gusts of more than 130 kilometers an hour damaged homes, knocked down trees and power lines. Thousands of power outages were reported. Nickel-sized hail was also seen falling across the region. Environment Canada says there have been no official reports of a tornado, but officials are still gathering data. One of the hardest hit areas by this storm is about an hour northeast of Toronto. Officials in the Township of Uxbridge, in the region of Durham, have now declared a local state of emergency after the storm left significant damage in its wake. Our Morganne Campbell is there tonight.
Right up there.
Pam Lawson is lucky to be alive. She lives in what's left of this apartment in Uxbridge.
It just started and the door pushed me back, so I was against the wall and the roof went, the windows went. It was just, I don't know how long it lasted, but it seemed a long time.
The 55-year-old is one of many without a home to go to. Todd Bogarts also lives in the apartment building. This is his truck. It looks like it was picked up and thrown on its side.
It's like a friggin' war zone. Like it's right from here, right through to the other side of the tin mill. That's exactly what it looks like.
Across the road at the historic railway station, much of the building and cars were destroyed. This was their opening day, and the volunteer-led organization was already on the brink of collapse.
Two of our staff were here and taking shelter in one of the trailers, and it was the only thing that didn't get destroyed on our property.
In nearby York region, Musselman's Lake was hit hard by the storm. Many downed trees and power lines littered major arteries, causing road closures. We caught Wayne Steele as he rushed home to check on his house.
I heard some of my roof blew off. I just came from Ossport. There's trailers flipped over with trucks on their side and freaked me out. I got a call from a buddy of mine saying I better get home.
But back here in Uxbridge, those who live here are resilient, and they say they will work to rebuild.
I wouldn't want to go through it again, I'll tell you.
Morganne Campbell, Global News, Uxbridge.
To the United States now, where the most restrictive abortion bill in America has been passed by lawmakers in Oklahoma. All that's left is the governor's signature, and he has promised to sign it. The bill prohibits abortions from the moment of fertilization and relies on lawsuits from private citizens to enforce it. Its only exceptions are for medical emergencies or in cases of sexual assault or incest. Pro-choice advocates are warning of dire consequences for thousands of women as abortion clinics are already closing their doors. Jennifer Johnson has the latest.
Oklahoma lawmakers have now overwhelmingly passed the nation's strictest abortion bill. The vote wasn't even close, 73-16. The state's Republican governor, running for re-election, is expected to sign it into law early next week.
We believe life begins at conception, and we're going to protect life in Oklahoma.
The bill provides only two exceptions, allowing abortions to save the life of a pregnant woman, or if the pregnancy was the result of rape or incest that's been reported to law enforcement. The abortion clinics in the state are already closing.
The people of Oklahoma are going to suffer, and the blood will be on our hands.
Some pregnant women in Texas had been coming to Oklahoma seeking the procedure after their state banned abortions after 6 weeks, but not anymore. The White House is denouncing the bill.
It's outrageous, and it's just the latest in a series of extreme laws around the country.
At least 12 states in the U.S. have so-called trigger laws that will immediately ban or greatly restrict abortions if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. That could happen as early as next month.
My choice!
Pro-choice protests have erupted around the country since news of the High Court's possible decision was leaked.
Without the freedom to choose, women will die and families will suffer.
Child advocates warn it will be the newborn babies who will suffer. Statistics show over half of the 4,000 women in Oklahoma seeking abortions each year are impoverished.
When these children are born into poverty, when they suffer abuse, neglect, separation of a parent, whether it's incarceration or divorce, the health care concerns, and the mental trauma, which would require counseling, the numbers are going to go up.
Pro-choice advocates say abortion rights, guaranteed in the U.S. for almost 50 years, are rapidly disappearing. The conservative majority Supreme Court has indicated it wants states to determine abortion laws, and many conservative states are welcoming that opportunity. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
In Quebec, demonstrators once again took to the streets this weekend to protest Bill 96, the province's controversial language legislation. A group of Ganawage First Nation students led a protest, which made its way into Montreal this morning. But Premier François Legault's government is set to enact the legislation in the coming days. Dan Spector speaks to those who hope changes are made before it becomes law.
It sparked anger, protests, and fear. Quebec's new French language protection law has divided the province.
Bill 96 is stirring up old tensions and old quarrels. It's going to be a hassle.
Stéphane Dupré runs a small furniture manufacturing company in Montreal. He understands the need to protect French, but feels the new law is bad for business.
It's going to directly affect our operations.
Bill 96 brings in new requirements for small businesses to prove they are functioning in French. Large companies already need to do this, but now smaller enterprises dealing with worker shortages and rising costs will need to shift their focus to adherence. That means pages of paperwork, hiring consultants, making sure all computer software is in French. Employees here come from over a dozen countries.
There will be misunderstanding, there will be problems with orders.
Some estimate dozens of hours and millions of dollars lost at businesses across the province.
It is the worst thing to do to increase the red tape for small and medium-sized business in Quebec.
Legal experts say thanks to the notwithstanding clause, the government will be able to seize documents without a warrant to make sure companies are working in French.
The normal bases for challenging unreasonable searches are being pushed aside.
Healthcare professionals also have deep concerns for patients not comfortable in French.
What it says is that it will be forbidden for public service employees to use languages other than French.
Longtime Anglophone residents will retain the right to be cared for in their mother tongue, but recent immigrants will only have 6 months before needing to deal with the state in French.
This will create problems, possible medical errors.
Will Bill 96...
The government went on the offensive in recent days to allay fears.
What people are entitled to have is to have their health services in their own language.
But it didn't help.
Unless we see it in writing that the profession of healthcare will be exempt from the restrictions and the punitive measures that are indicated in this bill, we are not satisfied.
With its majority government, Quebec will be able to pass the bill before the spring National Assembly session ends. The hope is that it isn't applied the way many fear it will be. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
Well, we have heard for months how Service Canada locations have been inundated with Canadians clamoring to renew passports. But it's now May, and the lineups are just as long. As Mike Drolet reports, speeding up the process is not as simple as hiring more staff.
So right now, it's not going to happen for you guys. I'm sorry.
With frustrations at a boil and information on Service Canada's own website unreliable, frontline staff at this Surrey, BC location summed up the state of the passport backlog.
It's like a hit and a miss. like a hit and miss.
People are pissed off. They're not understanding why there's no walk-ins when there's so many empty chairs inside.
With online appointments scarce, people have resorted to lining up for long hours, only to be turned away. And it's not just Service Canada. The offices for the Nexus Trusted Traveller program in Toronto were closed 2 years ago and have yet to reopen, even though the U.S. program is fully operational.
Yeah, we are a victim of they should hire more people or figure it out.
According to travel experts, the federal government simply wasn't prepared for over 500,000 passport applications to be filed in March and April.
That type of number is typically unprecedented, even in pre-pandemic era in the springtime. But again, you have the expiration of passports, the release of pent-up energy, the release of travel restrictions, all accumulating into like a perfect storm of people clamoring for information.
The government said in part, Service Canada has hired 600 new employees and opened more dedicated passport intake counters. However, the union says its members need 12 weeks of training before they're qualified to authorize a new passport. So for the foreseeable future, we may have to get used to empty Service Canada locations.
You just have to keep on trying.
No matter how frustrating it is. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Well, after years of delaying, Canada is joining its Five Eyes allies in banning Huawei from this country's telecommunications network. Ottawa declared the Chinese tech giant's infrastructure a threat to national security. But the decision came suddenly on Thursday, with no reason given for the timing. So why did it take so long? This week on the West Block, Mercedes Stephenson sits down with Canada's Public Safety Minister to find out. Mercedes.
Tracy, many thought the government delayed making a decision to protect the two Michaels, who were arbitrarily detained by Beijing for more than 1,000 days. But if so, why did it take the government nearly 8 months to announce a decision after they came home? We put those questions to Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino, who flat out denied the long-standing belief that the timeline or decision were connected to the detention of the two Michaels.
Well, I want to make sure that we decouple the situation with the two Michaels, and we're obviously very pleased that they were released with the review of these two particular actors and the telecommunications
There's
sector.
no relationship between the timing there?
No, there's not.
Huawei and another Chinese-owned telecom, ZTE, are both barred from not just Canada's 5G expansion, but already existing 4G infrastructure. The government says they consider these companies high-risk vendors and can't take part in an industry that has national security implications. While the political decision sends a strong signal to Beijing, there are questions about what else the government will do to shore up Canada's cybersecurity from foreign spying and to protect critical industries in Canada from Beijing. Mendicino says the Trudeau government is planning to introduce legislation that will help to protect Canadian national security interests in other industries.
So whether we're talking about the financial sector, our natural resources sector, essentially the vital parts and organs of our economy, we need to make sure that we're protecting them and making sure that we're updating our legislative tools to do just that.
As for when these tools will be in place, the minister says the government plans to act quickly but would not provide an exact timeline. All this comes as the Trudeau government has been changing tact on how it deals with Beijing to take a tougher stance. A significant change in strategy that was first telegraphed by the Prime Minister in an interview with Global News at Christmas.
We've been competing, and China has been, from time to time, very cleverly playing us off each other in a open market competitive way. We need to do a better job of working together and standing strong so that China can't, play the angles and divide us one against the other.
You can catch our full interview with the minister tomorrow on the West Block. Tracy?
All right, our Mercedes Stephenson reporting from Ottawa. Thank you. Coming up, the latest on cases of monkeypox here in Canada. Stay with us. Toronto is investigating its first suspected case of monkeypox in a man who had recent contact with someone who traveled to Montreal. This comes after 3 more cases were confirmed in Quebec, bringing the total in that province to 5. The Public Health Agency of Canada says it is still investigating about 24 other suspected cases of the rare disease. Earlier on Friday, Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam said it's unclear how widespread the disease has become in this country, but stressed the risk to the public is low. A common childhood virus called Adenovirus is now the leading hypothesis for recent cases of severe hepatitis in children that have led to at least 6 deaths in the U.S. The CDC says it is investigating whether 180 cases identified since last October represent an actual increase or whether an existing pattern has been found through improved detection. Around half of the children diagnosed recently also had adenovirus, which causes the common cold, but the exact cause of the illness is still under investigation. There have also been 10 cases recorded in Canada. Ahead on Global National, meal kits can save food waste, but are they saving you any money? A state of local emergency was declared in Manitoba's Whiteshell Provincial Park last night, as officials say rising water levels posed a significant threat to public safety. The Batula Lake area near the Ontario border has been evacuated, with residents in the surrounding areas being told to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Well, food inflation is at its worst in 4 decades, with prices up nearly 10% in the past year. That has prompted some households to turn to meal kits as a way to manage costs and reduce waste. But as Anne Gaviola explains in the second story of our Sticker Shock series, it won't save you money.
Take this couple of peppers.
Toronto resident Jamie Gandhi cooks at home a lot, but she finds the amount spent to feed her family of 4, including 2 active children, shocking.
I just feel terribly sad saying the numbers, but it's around $400 to $500 a week when it comes to groceries.
Every other week or so, they opt for meal kits. It costs more, but the time saved is valuable.
They definitely come in from the point of view of saving time, because it takes the whole pain out of the whole cooking process of what's the ingredient that I need, how much quantity I need, and what am I cooking today.
According to research by Dalhousie University, people flocked to meal kits at the start of the pandemic, causing Canadian sales to peak at $1.6 million in the first 6 months. But the easing of COVID restrictions and the amount of packaging that comes with most meal kit services, plus sticker shock, have given many households food for thought.
Food inflation is probably the biggest issue affecting households right now. And meal kits tend to be priced quite high, $8 to $13 on average per meal per person.
Global News averaged out the cost per serving of 3 leading meal kit companies. A family of 4 can expect to pay about $10 per serving. The cost per serving for a household of 2, though, nearly $12. Inflation is expected to push up the total food spend for a typical family of 4 to more than $14,760 this year. That's an increase of nearly $1,000 from 2021. Personal finance expert Rubina Ahmed-Haq says shopping with a list can save you more than 20%.
Before you leave, make a plan of what you're going to buy according to what's on sale.
And buy only what you need with smaller, frequent trips. For this household, meal kits are also a new culinary adventure they're willing to pay a premium for once in a while.
Introduce something new, experiment something new that I'm not used to, and have the whole family involved into just the basic cooking process.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Next, cheers to the return of a beloved West Coast wine festival. Wine lovers are the toast of Vancouver's waterfront with the return of the International Wine Festival following a COVID-19 hiatus. As Paul Johnson reports, many BC wineries were able to turn to local enthusiasts in order to stay in business.
It's great to be back in the room again.
Pouring samples of their signature aromatic white blends. Evan Saunders can tell you it's been a long haul since March 2020.
Panic, like everybody else, to start with.
For BC's wineries, the early pandemic saw both their restaurant customers and business at their tasting rooms disappear simultaneously. No one was sure what the future would be or if they would be in it.
And everybody putting their heads together and seeing what we could do to survive, essentially.
But they did. On day 1 of the return of the Vancouver International Wine Festival, BC wineries make up 40 out of 100 exhibitors. And it turns out their secret to survival was other British Columbians. who started ordering wine directly from them, numbers that surprised even the winemakers.
It just exploded. We'd be loading pallets onto trucks and seeing pallets from other wineries all around us going out as well.
The wine world is back.
After missing last year, the festival is back with wines from 13 countries and the opportunity for that personal experience.
It's not just about tasting wine or getting a sample. It's the fact that when you taste wine, you get to look the owner, the winemaker, in the eye and ask them questions and find out the story behind the wines in that glass.
Looking forward, BC's wineries hope to restore that experience factor even more. Osoyoos's Bordertown Vineyards has a popular Cabernet Franc. But on top of the health restrictions, last summer saw them dealing with wildfire smoke at their tasting room. Heading into this summer, the feeling couldn't be more different.
It's smile time. Everybody's, a little more relaxed now.
In Vancouver, Paul Johnson, Global News.
Tonight's Your Canada are the tulips in Ottawa. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you here again tomorrow. Good night.